The Louisiana Bayou stretched before Claire DuPont like a living, breathing thing. The cypress trees, draped in Spanish moss, stood sentinel over murky waters that glinted under the late October sun of 2025. The air was thick with humidity, carrying the scent of damp earth and something faintly sour, like decay. Claire's pickup truck rattled along the narrow dirt road, the only path to the cabin she'd been hired to clean. At 32, she was starting over, jobless after a tech startup in Baton Rouge folded, her savings dwindling, her confidence bruised. This gig, though strange, was a lifeline. The job posting had been vague. Housekeeper needed for remote cabin. Weekly pay. Discretion required. The employer, a reclusive author named Vincent Thibodeau, had spoken to her only once over a crackling phone line. His voice was low, gravelly, like he hadn't used it in years. "Just clean the place," he'd said. "Don't ask questions. Don't wander." Claire had agreed, desperate for cash, but the isolation of the bayou made her stomach churn. She'd grown up in New Orleans, used to the city's noise and lights, not this endless green silence. The cabin came into view, a weathered wooden structure perched on stilts above the swamp. Its graying plank sagged under the weight of time, and the tin roof was speckled with rust. A single lantern hung by the door, unlit, swaying in the breeze. Claire parked, grabbed her cleaning supplies, and stepped out, her boots sinking slightly into the muddy ground. The air buzzed with cicadas, their hum a constant pulse. She knocked on the door, but no one answered. Vincent had told her he'd be away for the day, leaving a key under a loose board. She found it, cold and damp, and let herself in. Inside, the cabin smelled of old wood and mildew. The living room was sparse, a sagging couch, a coffee table piled with books, and a single bulb dangling from the ceiling. Vincent's study, off to the side, was cluttered with manuscripts, a typewriter, and stacks of yellowed newspapers. Claire set her supplies down and started with the kitchen, scrubbing grease from a stove that looked like it hadn't been touched in years. The work was mindless, but the silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional splash of something moving in the water outside. As she swept the living room, her broom caught on a loose rug. She tugged it back, revealing a trapdoor set into the floorboards. Curiosity tugged at her, but Vincent's warning echoed, "Don't wander." She hesitated, then pushed the rug back into place. The cabin was creepy enough without her poking into dark corners. That night, Claire drove back to her rented trailer in a nearby town, exhausted but uneasy. The trapdoor lingered in her mind, a question mark in the quiet of the cabin. Claire returned the next morning, the sky heavy with clouds that promised rain. The cabin felt colder today, the air heavier. She started cleaning the bedroom, a small room with a single bed and a cracked mirror. As she dusted the windowsill, she heard it, a soft, lilting voice, like a woman singing a lullaby. The sound was faint, coming from below the floor. Claire froze, her heart pounding. The cabin was empty. Vincent wasn't due back until evening. She knelt by the rug, her hands trembling as she pulled it back. The trapdoor stared up at her, its rusted hinges daring her to open it. The singing stopped, replaced by a faint rustling, like fabric brushing against wood. Claire's breath caught. She grabbed her phone and dialed Vincent, her fingers fumbling. "Mr. Thibodeau," she whispered when he answered. "I heard something." A woman's voice singing from under the floor. "Is someone else here?" His reply was sharp, almost annoyed. "It's the wind, Ms. DuPont. The bayou plays tricks. Old pipes, air in the walls. Don't go poking around. Just do your job." The line went dead. Claire stared at the trapdoor, her pulse racing. The wind? She'd lived in Louisiana her whole life. She knew the difference between a breeze and a human voice. She grabbed a flashlight from her bag, her curiosity outweighing her fear. The trapdoor creaked as she lifted it, revealing a narrow crawl space beneath the cabin. The air was damp, smelling of earth and rot. Her flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating cobwebs and a dirt floor. At the far end, something glinted, a metal box, half buried in the mud. Claire hesitated, then crawled inside, her knees sinking into the damp earth. The box was old, its lid rusted shut. She pried it open, revealing a stack of journals, their pages yellowed and curling. Beside them were newspaper clippings, faded but legible. The headlines screamed, "Local singer vanishes after performance. Bayou Belle's disappearance unsolved. Sheriff calls case a runaway." The name Lila Rousseau appeared in every article. A young woman with dark hair and soulful eyes, last seen in 1995 after a gig at a local bar. The singing started again, softer now, almost a whisper. Claire's heart leapt into her throat. She scrambled out of the crawl space, slamming the trapdoor shut. Her hands shook as she stuffed the journals into her bag. She needed answers, and Vincent wasn't giving them. That evening, Claire sat in her trailer, poring over the journals. They were written in a woman's hand, the ink smudged but readable. The entries started in 1994, detailing Lila Rousseau's rise as a singer in the Bayou's small music scene. Her voice, the writer noted, was like honey and heartbreak, pulling crowds from miles away. But the tone shifted in later entries. Lila wrote of a man, VT, who promised her a record deal but grew possessive, demanding she stop performing for others. The final entry, dated June 1995, was frantic. "He's watching me. I can't leave. I hear him at night pacing outside my door. I'm scared." Claire's stomach twisted. VT, Vincent Thibodeau? The dates matched. Vincent would have been in his 30s then, old enough to be involved. The newspaper clippings confirmed Lila's disappearance was a sensation in the small town of Bayou-la-Batre. The sheriff at the time, Amos Boudreau, had declared her a runaway, citing her wild lifestyle. But Lila's journals painted a different picture. A woman trapped. Not running. Claire drove to the town's library the next day, a squat building with flickering fluorescent lights. The librarian, an older woman named Miss Eula, remembered Lila. "Sweet girl," she said, her eyes distant. "Sang like an angel. Folks thought she ran off with some city boy, but I never believed it. Sheriff Boudreau shut that case down too quick." "Did Vincent Thibodeau know her?" Claire asked, keeping her voice casual. Miss Eula's eyes narrowed. "Vincent? Oh, he was around back then. Used to hang around the bars where Lila sang, always scribbling in his notebook. Said he was writing a book about the Bayou's music. After Lila vanished, he got quiet, moved to that cabin, and kept to himself." Claire's unease grew. She thanked Miss Eula and left, her mind racing. Vincent had been connected to Lila, and now Claire had found journals in his cabin suggesting something sinister. But the singing, where was it coming from? She needed to go back to the cabin to confront Vincent, but first, she wanted more information. She visited the local bar, the Gator's Tail, where Lila had last performed. The bartender, a grizzled man named Ray, remembered her vividly. "Lila was a star," he said, polishing a glass. "But she got mixed up with the wrong folks. Vincent Thibodeau was always hovering, and Sheriff Boudreau, well, he was no saint. Rumor was he took bribes to look the other way on certain things." Claire's heart sank. A corrupt sheriff, a possessive author, and a missing singer. The pieces were starting to fit, but the puzzle was far from complete. Back at the cabin, Claire worked with one eye on the trap door. Vincent was there, hunched over his typewriter, his face pale and drawn. He barely acknowledged her, muttering about deadlines. Claire scrubbed the floors, her mind on the journals. She noticed new signs, wet footprints on the porch, too small to be Vincent's, and a lantern that flickered even when unplugged. Each time she heard a creak or rustle, her pulse spiked, expecting that haunting voice again. That night, she stayed late, pretending to clean while Vincent was out. She opened the trap door again, her flashlight sweeping the crawl space. The metal box was still there, but something else caught her eye, a small tattered blanket tucked into a corner, as if someone had slept there. Her breath hitched. Was someone living under the cabin? She called out softly, "Hello? Is anyone there?" No answer, but the air grew colder, heavier. Claire backed out, her heart pounding. She needed to talk to Vincent, but fear held her back. What if he was dangerous? What if he knew about the journals and was hiding something, or someone? The next day, Claire drove to the sheriff's office, now led by a younger man, Sheriff Tate. She showed him the journals and clippings, explaining what she'd found. Tate listened, his face grim. "Lila's case is cold, Ms. DuPont," he said. "But these journals, they're troubling." Amos Boudreau, the old sheriff, passed away years ago, but there were always rumors about him. "I'll look into it, but be careful. Vincent's got a reputation for being private." Claire nodded, but her resolve hardened. She wasn't leaving the Bayou until she knew the truth. Days passed, and the strange occurrences intensified. Claire found a half-eaten apple in the kitchen, the bite marks fresh. A window was left open, letting in the damp night air. She heard the singing again, always at dusk, always from below the floor. She began to doubt her sanity. Was the Bayou playing tricks, as Vincent said? But the journals were real, and so were the footprints. One evening, as rain pounded the cabin, Claire waited until Vincent left for town. She grabbed a crowbar from her truck and pried open the trapdoor, determined to search every inch of the crawl space. The air was thick, the smell of rot stronger. Her flashlight caught something new, a narrow tunnel leading away from the crawl space, barely wide enough for a person. She crawled through, her breath shallow, until the tunnel opened into a small, hidden room beneath the cabin's foundation. There, curled on a thin mattress, was a young woman, no older than 20. Her dark hair was tangled, her eyes wide with fear. She wore a faded dress, and her skin was pale, as if she hadn't seen sunlight in months. Claire gasped, dropping her flashlight. "Who are you?" she whispered. The girl flinched, clutching a worn journal to her chest. "Don't tell him," she begged, her voice hoarse. "Please, don't tell Vincent." Claire knelt beside her, her heart breaking. "I won't hurt you. I'm Claire. What's your name?" "Lena," the girl whispered. "Lena Rousseau." Claire's blood ran cold. "Rousseau, Lila's surname. Are you related to Lila Rousseau?" Lena nodded, tears streaming down her face. "She was my mother." Over the next hour, Lena told Claire a story that shattered her understanding of the cabin and Vincent Thibodeau. Lena was Lila's daughter, born in secret after Lila's disappearance. Lila had been pregnant when she vanished, and Vincent, obsessed with her, had kept her hidden in the cabin, promising to protect her from a world that wouldn't understand. But it was a lie. Vincent had manipulated Lila, using her fear of Sheriff Boudreau, who'd been paid to cover up her disappearance after a dispute with a local businessman who wanted her silenced. Lila had lived in the crawlspace for years, writing in her journals to stay sane. She gave birth to Lena in secret, and Vincent raised the girl, telling her the Bayou was dangerous, that her mother had abandoned her. But Lila had died when Lena was young, her health broken by years of confinement. Vincent kept Lena hidden, claiming it was to protect her from the same forces that took her mother. "He said the world would hurt me," Lena whispered. "He said he was keeping me safe. But I found Mama's journals. I know what he did." Claire's hands shook with rage. Vincent hadn't just stolen Lila's freedom. He'd stolen her daughter's life, too. The singing Claire had heard was Lena, humming her mother's songs, a desperate connection to a woman she barely remembered. "We're getting you out," Claire said, her voice firm. "Right now." Claire helped Lena out of the crawlspace, her frail body trembling in the rain-soaked night. They hid in Claire's truck, waiting for Vincent's return. Claire called Sheriff Tate, explaining everything. "I've got Lena Rousseau," she said. "She's alive, and Vincent's been keeping her prisoner." Tate arrived with deputies just as Vincent's truck pulled up. The confrontation was swift. Vincent, seeing Lena, froze, his face a mask of guilt and fear. "Lena, I was protecting you," he stammered. But the deputies cuffed him, reading his rights as rain poured down. Lena clung to Claire, her eyes fixed on Vincent. "You took my mother," she said, her voice breaking. "You took my life." The cabin was searched, revealing more evidence. Lila's belongings, hidden letters, and a locked box containing a confession Vincent had written but never sent, detailing his role in Lila's captivity. The journals confirmed Lena's story, and DNA tests later proved she was Lila's daughter. Vincent was charged with kidnapping, false imprisonment, and obstruction of justice. The case reopened the investigation into Lila's disappearance, uncovering Sheriff Boudreau's corruption through old financial records. The Bayou, once a place of secrets, became a symbol of truth uncovered. Claire took Lena in, helping her adjust to a world she'd never known. They moved to New Orleans, where Lena began therapy and discovered her own love for music, singing her mother's songs at open mic nights. Claire, inspired by Lena's resilience, started a foundation to help victims of hidden crimes, using the proceeds from Vincent's seized assets. The cabin was left empty, its trapdoor sealed, its secrets laid bare. Claire visited one last time, standing on the porch as the bayou hummed around her. She thought of Lila, whose voice had never truly been silenced, and Lena, who was finding hers. The truth, as painful as it was, had set them free. Months later, Claire sat in a New Orleans cafe, watching Lena perform on a small stage. Her voice, like her mother's, was honey and heartbreak, filling the room with light. Claire clutched one of Lila's journals, now published as a memoir under Lena's name, a tribute to a woman who fought to be remembered. The Bayou had taught Claire something. No secret stays buried forever. Truth, like water, finds a way to rise. And in Lena's song, Claire heard the echo of freedom, a melody that would never fade.